Okay, so in this video, I'm going to be painting this lovely scene of Huntington Beach. There's a pier in the background here. It's in California. I've never actually been here. I've just found a picture of it online. They're a free reference picture website. I'll post that as well in the video in the corner once I'm finished. But what I've done is I've essentially copied the main pier area in the back, very loosely sketched that in, and some of the waves. But with the figures, I've made a lot of these up. And what you can do is also check out some free reference pictures of people on the beach, and what you can do is just transpose some of them. And that's what I do to kind of make a different scene that just looks a bit more interesting and is a bit more of your own. So I'm going to get started now. And what I'm going to do is actually just start off in the top of the page as usual, just get in a nice wash of cerulean blue and try to fade that down actually to a kind of orangey color. Okay. So we'll start off with the cerulean blue. I'm just going to get some onto the palette first, like that. Let's try that out. That's pretty all right. Okay, and just basically just start off on the top of the page and work your way down. And what I want to do is eventually just fade that into a bit of orange down the bottom. So just trying to keep this wash pretty light as well. The waves and water at the bottom need to be darker, so I don't want to go overboard with this wash. And I might add in a few clouds. Let's see how we go. So more water as you move down the page. That's just going to lighten up this mix. And around here is where you want to start blending in a bit of this orange color. So what I'm going to do is just pick up a tiny bit of orange and pop that in here. And you can go over areas of the pier as well. I think that actually helps later when you go in with the darker color in front, especially if you go with a cooler, darker color. So just getting in a little hint of this orange. It can be red as well, just a warmer color. That's all you need to imply. And I might just add in a teeny bit more of this blue up the top as well, and just see if we can encourage that to blend a little bit. But finishing off this orange first, just cutting around the umbrellas too, that's quite important. Okay. And let's add in a little bit of blue here as well, where the water is. Just underneath here. Like that. Okay. Teeny bit of orange here. Finish off this wash. Like that. And let's get in some blue here. Just a teeny bit of that cerulean blue. Like that. Really at this point I'm just getting in some real basic colors. And I'll go over the top later again. And just trying to leave little bits of white as well. That's going to help just imply some of these waves. Okay. Just going to re-wet a little bit of this area here and maybe drop in some darker bits of blue, kind of purpley mixes just up the top, so just imply some clouds. These will have to be sharper. I've missed the point where the paper was still wet. But what you can do is just re-wet some areas like this and go into it once more. So it's another little trick. Just re-wet it in some areas. Okay. Then I'm just going to pick up some darker colors, a bluish color, and add in some shapes like that, some simple cloud shapes. Go. All right, leave that sky. That looks quite interesting. And I'm going to now move into the foreground and work on actually getting some yellow in here. So I've got some yellow ochre. So let's give that a try. Yellow ochre in the background. Make it pretty light back there. And, you know, cutting around some of the figures as well. But not being too careful here. Look, I mean, if you get a bit onto the figures, it's not a big deal. But I do want to get a different color into them. So yeah, we'll cut around some of this stuff. Really just hit that area where the sand and the waves meet. That. Keep it quite light. Really near the back. Nice and light. And we'll just move this lovely yellow ochre color down to the front. I'm also going to mix in a teeny bit of buff titanium just to vary this a bit. And you know, there's bits and pieces, towels and things here, which I'm just going to cut around too. That's some more yellow ochre. Keep those brush strokes quite loose. Remember, you don't need to color everything in. And there we go, another towel here that I've drawn in. Cut around it. That. And as you get into the foreground, just darken a bit more. There we go. You can even put in a teeny bit of this burnt sienna. That. But most of it is really just this yellow ochre. That's a nice smooth wash. And we're almost done. Just trying to get this finished. Fantastic. Little finishing touch is to use a toothbrush, or if you've got a bit of a little brush like this, just pick up a tiny bit of darker paint. I'm going to use some burnt sienna here mixed in with some grey on the palette. Pick some of this up. Make sure that the paint is thicker than the paint here on the front of the page, and just give it a bit of a flick like that. And this is just going to give some little textures and areas, wet into wet, little areas of interest like that. I like to do things like this. Another thing you can do is pick up the toothbrush, trusty toothbrush, get some of this darker paint on the palette, and same thing goes, just flick some of that onto the page to get little textures and things, keep things interesting. Okay, it's about enough. Okay, now this top section should mostly have dried, and here's a good time to actually get in some colors for these umbrellas. And it's always a good time here where I like to talk about cool and warm colors. And if you see the sky here, it kind of starts off as a cool blue and then moves down to this warmer color here. So what I like to do is I like to just have some oppositional colors. So probably around here I'll keep this one warmer because it's more in the blue area of the sky, and these ones I'll add some, just cool them down a little bit. So I'm going to make these and let's pick up a bit of pink, a bit of magenta. I'll go into this one first. Here we go. Pretty light. Remember, it is a sunny day, so get that in like this. And what you can do at the bottom is just darken it down a little bit more by adding some blue. This at the bottom is kind of a purple color, purplish sort of color, like that. And we'll just let that kind of blend in with the pink and magenta up the top, like this. Okay, that's a quick little umbrella done. And we'll get these two here. I'll actually get a bit of blue, bit of cerulean blue. Here, pretty much a pure cerulean blue. That, don't want to overstate it, these are in the background. And this one let's go with a bit of Prussian blue. That, slightly different color. Not a big deal. Turn a bit of pink in there, perhaps. Okay. Those are the umbrellas pretty much done. And, you know, with the towels, I'm gonna go in with a bit of a little bit of cerulean blue in some areas like that. Just almost like a bit of dry brush there, like that. Just to get in a bit of color, this one as well. And again, because the sand is this sort of yellowish color, I want to use a cooler color to contrast a bit, like that. And you know, we've got the bags and stuff like that as well, which we can, you know, just get in a few little marks. If you have a round brush, it's probably easier. So just a little round brush, and here going through indicating some details, say on this bag there. And we can get the light source coming directly from above as well. There we go. Just a bit of detail on these bags there. Yeah, great. And not sure what this is. You know, we can just make it up. Looks like this is a bit of a sandal long kind of thing, so I'm going to outline it in some areas like this. Just trying to imagine some shadows that are being cast underneath these objects, and towel as well. That. There we go. Yeah, just imagining what's happening. And we'll do these two as well, just a little bit like that, indicating some shadows. And the ends of the towel as well, just a bit of dry brushing. Really not too fussed. That. And I'm going to get some dry brushed lines going through the towels as well. Let me just get that brush a little drier, just like this. There we go. This one as well. Great. Moving further up into the umbrellas and things like that too, we can just get in the little stems. A bit of blue and a bit of brown. Like that. And carry this further down here. There we go. Stem hits the ground, and the ones in the background too. Just a bit of work like that. And also start indicating the underneath of the umbrellas, just a little shadow like that. Don't need to make it too obvious, just something like that. Just defining the shape of it a bit more. Okay. And do things like just add in the shadow at the same time. I'm going to add a bit more red into this mix to do the shadow, and I'm really going to try not to overthink this. Okay, just a bit of darkness underneath, like that. We'll do the same for this umbrella here in the back, and this one too. Bit of colour into this 𝗘𝗥𝗚𝗚 or whatever it is. Side. Bag here. A lot of it is just indication. I'm not interested in spending too much time trying to define everything. And I'm going to add a bit of red to some of these figures. Like that. It's kind of sitting here in the shade. Okay, there's a couple done there. Let's get a bit of color into these ones in the distance too. So, bunch here. And idea is that they're both sort of carrying surfboards. Some more here. So let's just do quick little shapes like that. Nothing too obvious. And you know, I've got some that are in the water here, just little indications like that. Figure here, and sort of a smaller child or next as well, so we'll get that in. And these two here in the foreground going a bit lighter, a lighter color here, just a light red. Bring that down, which is where their legs are. Here, indicate the arms almost facing each other. And time now to get in the background, this little pier, and for that I'm going to need to mix up a nice juicy grey colour. So red plus blue, a bit of Prussian blue, a bit of yellow, tiny bit of yellow in there. Just as long as it's dark, you'll be fine. I like to mix up a lot of the primaries because then you can get some interesting colours. And just use the stuff that's on the palette, really. So we'll go in, and I'm going to get this all in the same silhouette. So I'll start actually off around here. You're almost really just drawing with the brush. So let's get that in. Keep it pretty dark. Almost the same as this umbrella, but maybe a tad darker. And just referring to the image, try to get in some of these little wooden poles that are sticking in to the ground out into the sea. And there's an area here as well where we've got the kind of roof of one of these areas, the pier. So I'm just going to get that in quickly like that. Join that into the pier, move across like that, and just get in some more of these little kind of legs. Quite deliberate with my brush strokes as well. Often the longer you spend fiddling around with something, the more unnatural it starts to look. So you have to be careful with that to keep the same level of detail and consistency throughout your painting. So that one area just doesn't look too detailed, unless that's what you want to do. Sometimes people do that to draw attention to areas of their painting, but for this one I just wanted to more or less have an even level of detail. Okay, so a bit more detail here, just just implying what's going on. You know, even got these little poles or lights sort of going into the background like that. So very quickly Getting that in. Some more paint. And moving down here to the area closest to the beach. Just outline a bit more of this area at the top. That you can now go back into it and just change it up a little. Add a little shadow down the bottom here as well. Just for me, I'm going to imply a little shadow, nothing too much there. So I'm going to look around to see if I want to add anything else. I might just extend this out a teeny bit further. Like that. Okay, looks a bit better. A little bit darker in some sections. It's all the illusion of detail. Making some of these a little bit darker than the rest. Okay. Some windows or things like that. A little bit of detailing. Okay, almost done. Really what I want to do is add those finishing sort of darker colors to the painting, and also I'll start off with just adding some slightly darker sort of areas to the waves here in the background. I haven't defined this area enough. So I'm actually going to grab Okay, so I've got a flat brush and pick up a tiny bit of this blue, and I'm just going to mark out just the back area here, the water, like that. And it goes through all the way through that side as well, so get that in quickly. It's almost just glazing over the top like that. And once that's done, all I'm going to do now is just indicate a bit more darkness here in the front where some of these waves are. You don't need to do this. It's just a additional step really if you want to add a bit more detail. Okay, I'm going to leave that. Let's get in maybe some dark spots inside. Just some quick ones there. And time to get the shadows in. So I'm going to go a kind of reddish grey colour. Reddish sort of grey. And let's give this a go. Bit more darkness there. There. Some outlines on the figures and shadows underneath them as well. Looks like they're kind of wearing hats. Just leave that as is, very loose. That. Just really anywhere where you think there might be a shadow or an area of darkness, just get in those last sort of juicy darks, and especially here with the kind of shadow underneath these figures as well. So we're coming from above, so going to just imply some darks here. So it's wearing a swimsuit. That. Join that up, join that shadow up. And a couple here, these figures. Just emphasize a bit of detail. That. Little ones in the background too, just get a tiny shadow underneath them, like that. With the pier, just again, tiny bit of line work. Applying some darker areas, just running through. Again, just more layering. That's all it is. Okay, some hair on some of these figures as a nice finishing touch. There we go, just a bit of hair, like that. The ones in the background you don't need to worry about as much. Tiny little dry brush strokes in areas too of the sand. Add a bit of interest. Could be footprints, who knows? Seaweed, maybe. This is sort of helping to mark out the area of the waves as well. Don't need to do that to all of it. Little quick dry brush strokes. And finishing touch, let's add some birds. Sky. Should add a few more around this area near the pier. Make them a bit smaller here. Yeah, some in the distance, for example. Helps to break up the sky, as I say. The clouds, the birds, keep it looking interesting and just a bit more detailed than it actually is. So there's a few here just on the horizon. Okay. I think that's about finished. Check out these tutorials down the side here. I've got a couple of playlists that will help you get some ideas and improve your watercolors.